everybody. This is just a quick test.
Solid intro.
All right,
Yeah,
receiving contract.
we've been live for about 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Look, dude, my shit's like slow. Anyway, guys, welcome to the Oil Drop Podcast number 55. I might change the title later on. I don't know yet, because I wasn't really creative today. It's just a trade deadline one. Trade deadline, as you know, is tomorrow around noonish. No, 3?
1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock Mountain Time.
Mountain Time. 1 o'clock Mountain Time. And just as a quick summary of major trades related to the Oilers that have happened so far, we're going to be covering that, along with a little bit of in-depth in terms of, what's fair, what's not fair, so on. And then finally, we're going to be looking at we got a live listener already. Hey, Andre. We're also going to be talking about the other big trades that have happened, because this is probably one of the most active trade deadlines we've had in a while.
Yeah, it's a little interesting how fast it's actually picked up in the last couple of days. I expected nothing again with all the rumors for Karlsson and everything, but it's been big. Also, quick, we should start off by saying
the disappointment that was the Olympics, as well as the disappointment that is the Oilers. We're going to be talking about both. And
we should start off by saying, I don't know if anyone, the Stahl family is never going to see this, but consolations to them for their loss of their infant daughter. Obviously, something traumatic and devastating. Shouldn't happen to anyone.
I'm sorry.
Sad day. Jordan Stahl and his wife lost their infant daughter today.
Oh, that's just saddening.
So, moving on.
Moving on from such a sad topic, we're going to be talking about the first trade, I guess, that happened for the Oilers. Davidson got shipped off to the Islanders for a third-round pick. So the significance here is that the third rounder is not for this year's draft, which is a stronger draft in my opinion, but it's for the 2019 draft. Considering that there's that, as well as the fact that Davidson is an RFA, it's pretty even in trade value, but I'll let, I guess, James first pick it up.
It's honestly, I find that it's fine.
Yeah, it's more the
it's like everyone has to have such a fire and brimstone reaction to every trade that happens, like it's the end of the world or the beginning of the world or whatever. But Davidson is a third pairing defenseman. He's worth a third round pick, I guess. For next year, that's what he's worth. Honestly, he's not going to be the one to put the Islanders over the top to bring them to the Stanley Cup, but. He's a solid. He's not bad at puck moving. There's not a ton of offense there. He's not really physical. He's pretty good with shot suppression, isn't he?
Shot suppression is his big thing, yeah.
Yeah. So there's pluses there, but honestly, it's kind of whatever.
Yeah, the third round pick is actually pretty good value for someone picked up off waivers. It's sad because I like Davidson, obviously, as a player, and he has a great story. But the fact that he's gone from us to the Habs back to us to the Islanders now, and we've gotten Desharnais and a third-round pick for him is actually pretty good value on the Oilers' part. And then I would say...
I would say it's more of a failure of the Canadiens than a positive for the Oilers.
I'd still say it's like...
The value that a Davidson would have over a Joe Morrow or a...
Davidson wasn't playing very well for them. Davidson picked up his game when he came to Edmonton again. He's very much a guy that thrives in the Oilers system. So it's unfortunate, but third pairing defensemen are a dime a dozen. Third pairing that the Oilers drafted late and then developed and produced as an NHL player is pretty rare. But he's a third pairing defenseman. It's not like we're losing Nuge or anything here.
Yep. And along with that, in terms of drafted and developed, he was a sixth rounder. I think it keeps dropping every time I say the story.
I think he was a sixth rounder.
Yeah, something like that.
So he's one of those really low draft picks that just worked out. I apologize if the quality is a bit lower in this stream for people that are watching. Unfortunately, I did downgrade internet temporarily before I get the fiber.
Well, I'm not hosting.
Pardon?
Never mind.
No. It's working here. Don't worry. It's just a little drops in quality. That's it.
He was.
Anyway, my opinion of the trade is just basically, Davidson is a fan favorite, and that's what makes it such a sad trade for a lot of people. That's not to say that, the trade is bad at all. It's more accurately that the trade is, we sort of wish it wasn't Davidson. We wish it was someone else. And, we wish, instead of signing Russell to that 4x4, we keep Davidson around. But when you have two players essentially filling up the same role, and Russell contributes more offensively than Davidson does, even with the really shitty possession numbers, you got to give it a little bit more to Russell there. So when you have two players that are essentially filling the same role, you got to pick one or the other. And when you commit $60 million to one player for 4 years, Davidson is essentially the odd man out. And I think it was more. Sorry, 1 second. You can choose between Benning or Davidson, but Benning picks right hand. We have a logjam on the left hand that Davidson plays, and along with that, Benning is also more offensively inclined than Davidson is, even if he gets the most offensive zone starts of any player on the Oilers.
I was gonna say I think it was more between the logjam we have on left D and then Benning and Davidson, because they were kind of the ones swapping out. But yeah, Benning is a better skater than Davidson. Not to say that Davidson's skating is bad, but Benning is a stronger skater and, like you said, more offensively inclined. So it's not. This one isn't a big deal. This is something that just happens in the NHL, unfortunately, and it's sad that we had to move on from Davidson, but it's not backbreaking in any way. And the third pick is actually the third round pick is actually a pretty good deal for a third line player.
Yep. So the next trade, and pardon me, because I'm going to mute myself right after I finish saying this, is a Letestu trade. Letestu was traded as of this morning. The trade is, my video is lagging. My video is cut off completely. I apologize for that. And the trade is basically, we traded away Letestu to Nashville for, sorry, can someone fill in the name? It's such a weird-ass name.
Aberg, and then Nashville flipped Letestu to Columbus for the 4th round pick.
And I'll let I'll let James start off on that one. You can mostly talk about Letestu. I'll search up the new player.
Yeah, I mean, they're not identical players, but they're kind of similar in the fact that they are bottom 6 centers. So, I mean, I think that they're kind of banking on him to sort of step into Letestu's shoes. Letestu is 32. Aberg is 24. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of hoping that he can be a fourth line center for them. And that's really what they're banking on. Letestu is still the better player at this point. And I think that Aberg has pretty much done all of his developing. At 24 years old as a forward, you kind of are what you are. So I don't know what they're going to be expecting him to be, but 4th line center sounds pretty reasonable. Then as far as Letestu's contract goes, it's up after this season. And then Aberg is he's signed for this season and next season, and then he would be an RFA still. So $650,000 for his contract. He's cheap. If he's a 4th line center, then that frees up money to be spent elsewhere.
Yeah.
Fun facts about him: his nickname is the Pope.
His nickname is the Pope.
So this year he has 8 points in 37 games, and not exactly taking it to the bank or anything, but it's worth noting I was just reading his profile, which is why I was staring down at my phone the whole time. His prospect page says he is a high-end offensive skill player, fast and creative, always dangerous when he has the puck, but he needs to find consistency.
Yeah,
which is great because that's the Oilers' worst thing. Yeah. It's worth noting, to be fair, that he plays with Järnkrok and Sissons when he has to play the most often, but he has also played with Forsberg. So you're getting kind of a maroon-ish type player that's going to play 4th line fairly often, but can slot into the top 2 with Draisaitl, McDavid, or Nugent Hopkins if need be, since he is a high-end offensive player. So I imagine, although he's a replacement for Letestu, Alberg may end up playing a top 6 role in lieu of Maroon, who's likely getting traded today or tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. I can see that happening for sure.
So, right. I mean, they said they want to get faster, and he's faster than both Letestu and Maroon.
Okay. So to add to all of this, I actually have to look up the exact stats, but on the Nashville Predators as a whole, he has one of the worst. By the way, my apologies, my camera has completely cut out, and I have to basically restart the call for that to come back on. So I'm just gonna leave it as B, considering I take up a small corner of the screen there. Anyway, he was it Aberg is an enigma in a sense, because yes, he has a lot of offensive like frills, quote unquote, but it's like he lacks a lot of consistency, and he lacks the ability to put it forward in strong possession stats. Like his possession stats in the league for Nashville is one of the worst for any of the forwards on Nashville. I will look up the exact numbers, so I'm not talking out of my ass. But that's just to give you an idea in terms of, you know, where does like what kind of player are we getting? Because a lot of what Aberg is about reminds me a lot of Magnus Fjärby Svensson, and I really don't hope it's not going to be another like Magnus Fjärby, because yeah, that'll just fit into our bottom 6, but we need top 6 wingers quite desperately right now, because we've got plenty of bottom 6. In fact, all of our wingers are bottom 6.
I was going to say, I don't know if we have any top 6 besides Maroon. We have
Maroon and Draisaitl, who's moonlighting as a top 6.
I mean, Puljujarvi, I wouldn't say he's top 6 right now.
Puljujarvi has slowed down a lot.
I wouldn't say he's top 6 right now.
No. Yeah, Corsi relative for was it? What the fuck? Aberg, thank you. Corsi relative for Aberg last season was negative 6%, and this season has been negative 5.8%, which would probably make him the worst on the Oilers as well.
Which is impressive.
Which is really impressive to have a Corsi relative that low. Fenwick is better. Unfortunately, I'm thinking a lot of what's going right for him this season has to do with the fact that his PDO last season compared to this season is 99 versus 106. Also, his offensive zone starts would put him first on the team this year for percentage of offensive zone starts. Because it's solidly at 61%, and if I remember correctly, Benning was like at 59%. So that's 61% zone starts and Corsi relative of negative 6. That's really bad. I'm rounding up a negative 6.
Yeah, that's brutal, actually.
That's brutal.
That's
so like everyone's putting their hopes up with this guy, but I gotta be honest with you. I think I'm making a lot of facial expressions, and it's not representing. I apologize for that. It's not probably gonna work out. Like if it works out, it's probably gonna be more the exception to the rule than what we expected in the first place.
Okay, well, whatever. It's a minor trade still.
It's,
you know?
Yeah.
Letestu is not great either anymore.
No.
So.
Yeah, that's all fair. The big question then is, you know, who fills in the bottom 4th line center role, and who fills in that void on the first power play?
Well, I don't know. On the first power play unit, you probably want to give
Puljujarvi?
Puljujarvi. Feed him those minutes, man. He needs the development. Like you guys said, he's slowed down a lot.
Mm.
So, I don't know what exactly the problem is, but I mean, he doesn't look great lately. So he has 15 points in 44 games so far this year. Fuck, that's actually
most of them came in the first 20, 30 games.
Yeah, he's not done a whole lot lately.
Bogged down. Adam, do you want to contribute anything in terms of who do you think is going to be the next 4th line center? Is it Kyra? Like, because everything's pointing towards, you know, it's Kyra's time, but they brought up Ty Ratty.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Kyra getting it, but he's been playing primarily 3rd and 2nd line right now, which I definitely don't think he should be playing 2nd line.
No.
He looks a little bit overwhelmed the last couple days. He played quite well yesterday. but he's been in the last 5, 6, 7 games since McDavid's moved back up with Draisaitl. Kara's been playing second line center, and it's just a little bit too much for him. I could see him moving back down to the third. Nude should be back in the next week or so Nude should move back to second, Kara third, and I could see Ty Ratty playing fourth. Realistically, they might try to slot Strome in as a centerman again. The problem right now is that we have no prospects.
I know.
We had Yakimov, and he went back to Russia. Yeah, Kara's improved. Like, we don't have anyone outside of that.
Yeah.
There's no one that's going to step in, It's just like bad
asset management.
Yeah.
Bad asset management, bad drafting. Even like, God, I really don't want to get on this topic but go off on too much of a tangent. But like just at the 2016 draft, it's like Puljujarvi, cool, but I mean, fuck. We could have had Matthew Tkachuk, Clayton Keller, Mikhail Sergachev, Charlie McAvoy. Like, fuck, man, these guys are stars already.
Yeah. I would argue that Sergachev is overperforming at the moment, but I agree with you on all the other players there.
Like even Keller, you can make
the argument that Keller slowed down a lot, but Keller is playing on a shit team. The only other good player that he gets to play with is Stefan and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And it's basically Ronta winning them games right now.
I feel like in the 2016 draft when Columbus took Pierre-Luc Dubois third, it was like, holy shit, Puljujarvi's fallen to us, and we just like made
our
that pick.
Turned off. We picked Puljujarvi, and to be honest, like every single person went, 1 and 2 very clear, 3 and 4 very clear in terms of who should be 3, and then 4 and 5 is like, you can pick one or the other. That was like the very obvious top 5.
How are so many teams wrong about this? Because Puljujarvi was,
fundamentally speaking, what went wrong with Puljujarvi is on team development. Because if you remember, like, this is the one thing, if you saw on the Edmonton Oilers subreddit yesterday and today, you can still see it's on the front page. It's an appalling, it's a downright comical post that says that Chiarelli, it's a defense of Chiarelli. And the defense is basically, what he got from McTavish and what he got from Lowe was absolute garbage. So we shouldn't, this is a one-off season, so we should just give him a pass. And then one of the arguments is that Draisaitl was horrible, and then Chiarelli developed him, and something along those lines. I apologize if I am abbreviating here. But the one thing that I point out to is in the same way that Draisaitl's development was perhaps hindered by McTavish's mismanagement of him and burning away his first RFA year, I could make the same argument that Puljujarvi's development was even worsely hampered by this guy.
It's worth noting he's 20. He's a young pick from that year. He was a kid. Like, he's still a kid. At the time of the draft, like you mentioned, everybody was high on him. When he dropped down, it would have been foolish not to take Puljujarvi. And yes, it hasn't worked out stellarly so far, but we would have been mocked relentlessly if we had not picked him. Mm-hmm. And I think I agree with Arun in the sense that I don't think
Columbus
it's been.
Is still mocked relentlessly.
I don't think it's the fault of Puljujarvi in this or that it was a wrong choice. I think the team is messed up in terms of their development because we've gone from having wingers that could so you could leave Puljujarvi in the AHL to he's literally our only prospect. And I still call him a prospect because he hasn't emerged yet.
No.
And he's also currently our best winger.
Yeah.
Like it's
best right winger. Let's be fair.
Yeah, well, I mean,
let's be fair to Maroon here.
So what are you going to do to him then? Like, you didn't leave him in the AHL when we have no depth in the forwards. Like, at this point, he probably should be sent back to the AHL because we're missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I know.
But the Condors are absolute shit too. They're below 500.
They're brutal. They are so bad. You're banking on him at this point doing what Draisaitl did because Draisaitl took 2 seasons to really get going as well, and then he took off that 3rd season, and he was fantastic. And you're banking on him doing that, and is he going to do that? I don't know. Like, you can't.
You don't know. That's a problem.
We don't know that, and you can't really almost I feel like you can't really depend on it either. Like you depend on it, but you can't depend on it at the same time because it was such a monumental improvement by Draisaitl. It doesn't seem like it's something that normally you don't go like this. Like it's
I think
one of
a
those.
huge part of how Draisaitl was able to develop the way that he was able to develop was one, he got to play in the CHL and just dominate and win a Memorial Cup MVP. And then two, at no point during his development in the later years did management go, he gets an automatic pass onto the team, getting first line minutes. No. Like, he had to work his way to that role, and then when he did, he got to play with Taylor Hall.
No, I think when he first got to the
underestimating the fact that playing with Taylor Hall versus playing with Pakarinen is going to make a huge difference. And Strome and Cassian is going to make a huge difference in terms of how many points you can put up.
Was Puljujarvi ever drafted by the CHL import draft?
No.
He should have been. Every player gets drafted by CHL.
He was, but he never
He
played.
opted not to go.
Oh, he never played, but
yeah.
Hang on, I'm gonna look that up.
I think
go ahead.
the debate was if he didn't make the team the first year, he was going back to Finland, which he did. I think.
No, he played in AHL, dude. And that was where the first bit of controversy came in, because lots of players, lots of people from around the league and fans and
he went down to the AHL. He went down to the AHL the first year, did he not?
Yeah, he went down to AHL, yeah. Because they were calling him a bust because he was struggling in the AHL.
Which I still find stupid. People are calling on him to be traded. He's like, oh, Puljujarvi was the wrong pick. It's like, right now it seems that way, but he's 20 years old. He doesn't even turn 21 until, April or something, doesn't he?
No.
The
thing, though, is that, we keep saying that he's 20 years old. A lot of the, top-level players have their best seasons when they're, 21, 22.
And on what team do they play for? They don't play for a team that's in the bottom 5 of the league.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's fair, but we're stretching here a bit.
He's 19. He's not even 20 yet. He's 19. Turns 20 on May 7th.
All right, I'll give you that one. But I'm still of the opinion that it's sort of having everyone goes when you have a high draft pick. You're lucky. You get the good players. But fundamentally speaking, I think when you have a high draft pick, you get shoehorned in to pick a very specific player.
You can be if your GM is smart, not necessarily, but you can be.
The only time, in the last couple of years, where I went, oh, the GM is playing a wild card, was picking up Pierre-Luc Dubois, and the only thing that's proving is that Pierre-Luc Dubois was in fact looking to be slightly better than Puljujarvi.
The problem
you get shoehorned. No, go ahead, Adam. Whatever.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm off the top of my head, shoehorned into picking specific players. You have, McDavid, obviously, in 2015, but then the only other one that really comes to mind is Yakupov. Nurse
is not one. Matthews,
Nurse?
That's another one.
Nurse. I'm just talking Oilers. But
Oilers, okay.
After Nurse, it was we're drafting a defenseman this year. We have these young forwards. We're defensemen. So it was either Nurse or Ristolainen.
Ristolainen went 8th.
Yeah.
And Ristolainen's en route to put up another 40-point season this year.
Yeah.
Another 40-point season this year.
Pretty well this year.
Nurse has carried the decor more than he should.
Yeah, Nurse
for sure. I'll give him that one. And fundamentally speaking, in terms of possession stats, Nurse is better than Ristolainen. But that being said, Ristolainen is playing 26 to 30 minutes a night.
He is their decor. He literally is their decor.
Their entire decor. And on top of that, he puts up 40-point seasons and carries their power play.
I'm looking at Buffalo's D here. There's him. There's Marco Scandella, Jake McCabe, Nathan Beaulieu.
He is their decor.
Scandella's the only one that stands out in there among them.
Josh Georges is still playing there.
Is he?
Yeah.
Wow, didn't even know that.
I'm going to pull up a quick trade chart here so we can go through some of the other ones. But you guys continue with...
the big one, obviously.
The Rick Nash trade is the big one.
Well, I was going to say
that...
that's
that's a big one, yeah.
So I have a chart here for the Brassard trade, so we'll go through that one real quick. But in reference to the Oilers again, I think unfortunately, unless we get Puljujarvi playing with better players or in the AHL, he's going to struggle because right now, no top prospect plays on the third line with shit players and develops or produces points. That doesn't happen. I don't know what the Oilers plan, but we'll see. Anyway, so for this Brassard trade, I'm just going to go through what each team is giving and getting. So Pittsburgh gave Ryan Reeves, Ian Cole, Philip Gustafson their first this year, their third next year, and Vancouver's fourth next year, and got Brassard at 40% retained, Vincent Dunn, Tobias Lindbergh, and Ottawa's this year's third. Ottawa gave up Brassard, Dunn, and their third this year for Ian Cole, Philip Gustafson, Pittsburgh's 2018 first this year, and Pittsburgh's third next year. Knights, who apparently decided that they didn't want Brassard.
We'll get to that. We're going to make fun
in
of
the
Knights,
West, which I found hilarious.
We're going to make fun of them for that. Don't worry.
Yeah. So they gave up Lindbergh, retained 40% of Brassard's cap hit, and got Ryan Reeves and Vancouver's fourth this year. And the Knights just went to the top of the who was it? The Blues' shit list, I think it was. Who was trying to acquire Brassard?
I don't know.
Jets.
People are saying that
was the Jets.
is getting burned.
The Jets are desperate to try to get a third line center, and the reason for that is I forget the last name of the goddamn player, but someone Armia Cobb or no, I combined two players with that. Cobb is basically centering Laine and Ehlers on the second line. And everyone's like, what the fuck is that second line? That should be like a first line. Yeah, that's sort of the point. That's the way the Jets are playing. They're spreading out all of their offense. But the problem is that they need a good third line center that's not named Brian Whittle, Blake Wheeler, or Mark Scheifele to center that line. Because their top line is Scheifele, Wheeler, Kyle Connor. Their second line, I forget who it is. It's Brian Little along with two guys.
Matthew Perreault, I think, is their second line center.
Pardon?
Yeah, I think it's Matthew Perreault.
Yeah, it's like that.
No. Matthew Perreault is not their second line center. It's Brian Little. Perreault's a winger. Perreault's not a center.
I thought Little was a winger. I thought Little was right wing.
Was he? Hi, guys, everyone.
I'll solve this. Daily face-off. So the top line is Kyle Connor, Mike Scheifele, Blake Wheeler. The second line is Matthew Perreault on the left, Brian Little at centerman.
Called it.
Jack Roslovic as third. Third line is Nikolai Ehlers on the left side, Andrew Kopp center line, Patrick Laine playing third line. Then it's Patan, Hendricks, and Armia.
And that's an unbelievable forward core. That's
an unbelievable forward core, and they're desperate for a third line center to make that third line more potent on 5-on-5.
Yeah.
And picking up a 50-point center in Brassard would have been fantastic for them. But essentially, what Golden Knights did is they went, no, fuck you. And they went, we don't want, the Jets to be the bad matchup for us in the West in the playoffs. So we're going to essentially hold 40% of Derek Brassard's contract for this year and the next year. So so Brassard doesn't play for the Jets.
Has that ever happened before? I'm trying to think of the last time I can't think of any time that's ever happened.
Who would they trade for now for a center? People are saying that guy.
Vander Kane.
Vander Kane's not a center.
Peugeot.
He's not going back, that's for sure. JPG might go.
Peugeot, yeah, that's one. But it's not a good fit with that, because he doesn't have the skill to match up with the other.
He's not a super skilled guy. Yeah, they say Max Domi is available, but.
That's going to be a huge asking price, and that's not a good partner to go with.
I don't see Domi moving. I could. Well, just grab Carlson and then put Carlson forward. Problem solved.
Okay.
No, I got it. So what you do is, right? You take Carlson, you put him on the decor, and you take Byfuglien, and you put him at center.
There you go.
Before.
Okay, what about Andrew Shaw?
Well, you know who else is technically available right now that we want to think about.
Oh, Plekanec got traded, by the way. So
Nuge.
Plekanec is no longer available. Who's picked him up? I'll actually say the trade real quick here. Montreal retains 50% of Plekanec's cap hit. They trade Plekanec and Kyle Bond, and they acquired defenseman Rinal Valiev, forward Kirby Reichel, and Maple Leafs second rounder in 2018, which is basically the equivalent of a bunch of spare parts to complete a trade.
Yeah.
So TSN's top trade list right now. The top centerman / left winger is Zach Smith. That's a possibility. And then the next one is Max Domi. And Derek Ryan is the only pure centerman on the top 15. I don't think...
He's gone too now.
I doubt Nuge gets traded. He's too expensive for the Jets to want to go. The Jets aren't going all in this year. It'd be too expensive. And I want to hope Shirley doesn't have an inclination to trade him right now. Especially at at a time like this where teams don't pay big because they're trying to save up for the playoffs. But realistically, see the Jets going after Zach Smith or Max Domi's a possibility, but like Arun mentioned, the asking price would just be too high. Mm-hmm. So realistically, the Jets might just have to go with what they have. It's been working. But
Max Domi's RFA after this season, so I don't know. Like I could see them going for him. Like I don't think he wants to be in Arizona anymore myself.
I don't think anyone wants to be in Arizona.
Yeah. So
that the only thing I could see it, but I don't know. I think the Jets are kind of going to be low ballers from here on out because they got kind of screwed on the Brassard trade.
Yeah. What about Galchenyuk?
He is not even on the top 20. Or he's 16, sorry. But he's he's listed as a left wing.
Yeah.
Galchenyuk, I doubt Galchenyuk gets moved.
No.
I doubt it. Especially after this season when he found a bit of chemistry with some of the fellow players. I forget the names, all of them.
Yeah, I don't really give a shit about the Habs, so I don't really care. So obviously, moving on, the big trade just happened today. So
big trade.
The Rangers have.
This is a big trade 6 or 7 years ago.
Oh, big trade, everybody, let's go!
Yeah. Rangers have acquired a first-round pick in the 2018 draft. Ryan Lindgren, Ryan Spooner, Matt Bolesky, and a seventh-round pick next year for the Bruins in exchange of Rick Nash. And Rangers also retain 50% of Nash's salary, while the Rangers retain 50% of Bolesky's salary. So basically, it was a first, Lindgren, Spooner, Bolesky, and a seventh for the Bruins.
Yeah.
Or for Nash, which is a exorbitant price to pay for Rick Nash.
That is a gigantic price. This is going to be the best trade that New York Rangers could have gotten for Rick Nash. This is hands down the best trade that New York Rangers can get for Rick Nash. Not only do they get the first round pick for next year's NHL draft, what they're also doing is, Boston won in terms of getting rid of that Matt Bolesky contract, but they're still retaining.
Not really. They only got rid of
half
of it,
right?
They got rid of half of it.
They got rid of half of it, and then the other part is they got rid of a contributing forward in Ryan Spooner, who's been very good at generating offense, even with the exorbitant number of offensive zone starts that he gets, and a good prospect or respectable prospect in Ryan Lindgren. It's unlikely that most of these players will survive the quote-unquote rebuild that Rangers are trying out. But definitely that first-round pick and Ryan Spooner are the big highlights for me in this trade.
Fun fact about Ryan Spooner, he was drafted in the second round of the 2010 draft, and he was one of those draft picks was from the Kessel trade.
Oh, damn. So that means all of Kessel trade is now gone. Like officially.
Yeah.
Yep. But I find.
Oh, okay. So really quickly here, just finishing this off in terms of the Spooner versus Nash comparison. Spooner's points per game is .641. Nash's points per game is .467. So 0.6 versus essentially 0.45.
Worth noting the teams are playing on, but yeah, it's this is what what this tells us is that this is seller's market. That's a ridiculous trade.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ridiculous
Like, that's
trade.
absurd. And then all the Bruins are going all in, basically, too.
Rick Nash is a corpse of what he once was.
He has been
he
for
still
a few
puts
years.
up points, and he's still super defensively responsible. Like,
He's
on a
still
playoff run, he's a good ad for a depth winger. I definitely
Yeah.
think so.
His decline wasn't slow, though. He fell off a fucking cliff.
Not really. I think you guys are exaggerating it. I'm gonna look this up, so I'm not talking out of my ass, but I'm speaking from a fantasy hockey perspective, and Nash is basically one of the better contributors from Rangers this year.
That's not saying a lot for the Rangers this year.
True. But then again, who expected Zibanejad to fall off a cliff?
Yeah, no, Zibanejad was better than people are giving him credit for. He played well on a Sens team that was decent, but he's never been a line-carrying type of player.
No.
I mean, the other one, so while you're looking at the other big one that's happened today is the Leafs picked up Thomas Plekanec for Valiev, Reichel, the Leafs' second pick in this year, and they also, the Leafs also got Kyle Braun in exchange.
And Montreal retains 50% of Plekanec's salary.
Yes.
The money is kind of whatever. Like,
That's just basically bad for the
Habs.
Jets again, because that takes away another center that's available for trade.
To be honest, it's kind of the East is kind of gearing up pretty hard for these playoffs. Like between the Bruins, the Leafs, the Penguins, and the Lightning, it should be a good playoffs.
yeah, Kyle Braun he's a depth guy. Like, he's not even on an NHL roster right now, but
I definitely said his name wrong too.
it's a pretty astute pickup. I think he's not as good as he used to be either, but I'm actually kind of hopeful for that trade.
So apparently, it's worth also noting, Thomas Plekanec wanted to stay in the Eastern Conference. He was going to move. He had no trade protection, but Mark Bergevin worked on finding a solution he'd be happy with. An extension was discussed, and parameters are there for him to return to Montreal this summer.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, it makes sense. His family is there. He's been there forever. It makes sense for the Habs to get him back. So realistically,
watch Plekanec win the cup and then stay in Montreal forever. I mean, stay in Toronto forever.
he won't stay in Toronto.
No.
They can't afford him.
I feel bad for Montreal fans everywhere, because if Toronto goes even on a remotely deep cup run, they're gonna feel sad because they're happy that Plekanec is happy, but they're sad that it's their bitter rivals that are doing well in the playoffs while they missed it.
You're gonna say it's gonna be like it's gonna be like if Nuge were to, or if Nuge were to go to the Canucks or something.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Right?
No, the Flames.
Like
To be honest here.
No, it'd be for me. It'd be the Canucks. The Flames, I could never watch win. But it'd be like
That's true.
it's one of those things where it hurts to physically watch them do well on that team. But again, you want that player to do well. I don't know. Apparently, there is a bunch of movement around Vander Kane right now, according to the score, after the Rick Nash trade. Since that has become a seller's market, the
Sellers are happy. It's a seller's market. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you really quickly here.
Yeah.
Pool Party says Nuge isn't going anywhere. Unfortunately, Chiarelli did state that there's a lot of contracts tied up in the center position. And that sort of makes everyone nervous that it's Nugent Hopkins that's going to get the hook. But so far, Letestu has gotten the hook, so we can sort of be okay-ish. But it's going to be interesting in how things work out because Strom's contract ends and he's an RFA as well.
I just feel that centers are harder to get. Like,
Exactly.
how is that? That's just common sense. We have three good centers. Just fucking keep them.
What confuses me, I'm worried about this offseason for one. With Chiarelli's comment, that's like, okay, so he's looking to move somebody. He's moving to test you, but is he looking to move Nuge this summer? Probably. Mm-hmm. The thing that's concerning me is I bring this up fairly often, but 4 years ago our center depth was Arcobello, Gagne, and nobody.
Yeah. This is the same thing that happened with their goddamn wingers, because everyone's like, oh, we've got so many wingers. Let's move some so we get more, centers. And now we have no wingers.
You don't rob Peter to pay Paul. And centermen in the NHL are hard to come by. Not only that, a two-way centerman in the NHL to put up 60 points a year on a $6 million contract are fucking impossible to find. But let's just trade him for next to nothing because Chiarelli never fucking wins big trades.
He doesn't.
So what's going to happen is Nuge is going to get traded for peanuts. We're going to be short on center depth again. Then we're going to end up playing Draisaitl with McDavid again because Draisaitl currently can't carry his own line because we don't have enough fucking wingers to help McDavid and Draisaitl out. And then we're going to have nobody at the second centerman on.
I mean, basically what's going on with Nugent Hopkins is that he used to pass to Eberle so Eberle could put it in the net. Now he has no one to pass it to, so he's putting it in the net.
Rip.
I always love it when he goes on a tangent and then immediately his mic cuts out.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.
Did it cut out? What happened?
Entirely. You started your sentence and your mic cut.
Oh, man.
That's pretty good. It's mind-blowingly stupid to get rid of the one depth you have. I understand you have to move players in order to get prospects and picks and extra players that you need to spread out the depth, but moving your center core that is literally one of the only strengths you have on the team right now seems lunacy to me.
Yeah, and when you trade a star player for a bunch of smaller bits, like, you never win that way. You never win that way. Ever, ever, ever. The pieces that you get back, they get whittled away to nothing over the course of the next couple of years. Like, you never win those trades.
Kessel-Treg, Seguin trade. It doesn't matter. I would say another one for the Oilers, but every single time it's been a big trade, it's been 1-for-1.
Yeah.
So we don't
when
know.
It shouldn't have been a 1-for-1. I mean, we're in an NHL where we're getting the most complicated goddamn trades that any NHL team or any sports teams are seeing in the Brassard trade, where teams are literally taking 40% of a contract to make sure that it doesn't go to a rival, and you have Chiarelli making a 1-for-1 trade to obtain a quote unquote number one defenseman.
Who's like a number 3 defenseman, but
yeah,
okay.
Number 2 when he's at his best.
Yeah, it's a stretch, but okay.
It's just I have zero faith this summer. We're gonna lose. If Nuge is traded this summer, I may be done for the year. I may just write it up because we're not gonna do well unless McDavid goes full nuclear.
Well, jeez. I would just love to be McDavid and walk into the Oilers boardroom or something with Chiarelli and the scouts and all that shit and just be like, fix this fucking team while I'm doing a trade.
He won't ever do it, but it's one of those things where maybe Cam Talbot will tell the team to go fuck themselves because he's already told the refs to do it, which is appropriate. But holy hell, I don't know what needs to happen in order for this team. The thing is, what do we do at this point? Who do you trade instead? Technically Nuge is the best option for trade because he's a high value player on a good contract, still young, producing well, playing well at two ends. He's not on an $8.5 or $10 or $12 million salary, and we do have McDavid and Draisaitl. But then again, he's also the third highest scoring player on the team. He had the most goals this year before he was injured. He's been the best two-way player and the most consistent player on the team. So to get rid of that in order to get the value out of it, but you won't get the value.
Trade Lucic somehow. Trade Lucic to fucking Arizona so that they can meet cap floor. Get a 5th round pick for him and just start over.
They're not going to trade him though because Lucic has an NMC, so he's not going anywhere unless he wants to, and he's certainly not going to go to Arizona. And B, Chiarelli, he's a Chiarelli type player, so as long as Chiarelli is here, he ain't going anywhere.
Chiarelli fucking guy, yeah.
He throws NMCs out like fucking candy, so we're stuck with Russell for at least another year and a half. Another year. Sorry, his NMC expires next year, so we could trade him in his 3rd year. Although Russell's been actually,
I thought it kicked in after the 2nd year.
No, it's the first 2 years is what it was. Yeah, he has an NMC for the first 2 years and a modified NTC, so we can give us a 10-team trade list for the last 2 years.
Okay, so he'll play this season and next season,
and then be traded in this 4th. Which, to be fair, if he plays like he has this year, I'm not hugely disappointed with that. He's been all right. He's still overpaid, but he's been competent this year.
Apologies, everyone. For some bizarre reason, my Skype is acting up. So just bear with me here, and I'm going to restart Skype. Hey, everyone. It's just me here. What's up? I'm opening up Skype. As you can see, I play a little bit of Diablo 3. And, that's it.
I would say trade picks, but we're not anywhere near contention. You only trade picks normally if you're near contention.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at
guys, we're gonna have to wrap up just from the sheer fact that my OBS is now acting up, so I gotta figure out what's going on here.
No, man, we're on a good tangent here.
Oh, fuck. Okay. I'll figure this out.
I can try to get mine going. I can try to get mine going if not. I'd like
roster, and it's like, okay, yeah, Letestu, Camilleri, Slepyshev, Kajula, Cassian, like all those guys can go. Davidson already gone, and I'm looking at the D core, and it's like, okay, you're not going to get rid of Clefbaum or Larson. Russell, did you get rid of Sekera? Like, he's not been great since he came back, but I know it's the injury thing, but he hasn't been great.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. Who do you move him to then? Because he's on what, 4.5, 5?
5.5, I thought.
Something like that. Like I would honestly hold on to him for a little bit just because I think that he's going to improve again. But if you look at him, then like, okay, so you have him for 2 more years, I think it is.
2 more years after this, yeah.
So it's tough. Like we've gotten to the point where we're in a spot where there's no easy way out, and I don't see a way that the current management, gets us out of it.
Yeah, and that's why like Spectre came out with that article and everything, because like we've gotten to the point where we've reached the point of no return. Like, it's too shit.
When Spectre's saying, as we know, it's bad. Like it's concerning when even all of us. I'm not saying us like we're experts, but when you look at a fan base and the only options they come up with for the solution is the most ridiculous fucking option you can think of, like trading Draisaitl for peanuts so you can restart with no cap hit.
Yeah,
it's like it's gotten to the point of absurdity.
Yeah. Anyway, on more positive news, we finally won our first gold challenge in 19 attempts last night. Hooray!
Yeah. I don't even know if we should have won that one, to be honest. That was kind of like that was really obvious in my opinion.
I didn't even see it crossing the net, and it was pretty clear as day in terms of 1 whack, 2 whack. Even if it's like he got the puck on the second whack, essentially, like you're pushing the goaltender on both whacks, and that's how it goes in the net. It's pretty cut and dry goaltender interference.
I was watching the gold medal game for the Olympics. I didn't even watch the Oilers game last night.
Yeah, that was a sad ending. That was a shorthanded goal, broke my heart.
As soon as they got that power play in overtime, Russia, like it's there's no way that they're not going to score.
What are you going to do against a bunch of players who are still playing the KHL? Like it was the dumbest competition.
On the topic of Olympics, so that's wrapped up. What are your guys' thoughts on how it all came together for Canada? We got the gold. How about the women's? Right. At least we got the silver.
There was a lot
curling.
Curling. There was a lot of high points, but
it ended on low points.
It ended on low points. The last few days, I was like, shit. Women's hockey was the one must-win for me.
Yeah.
I like men's gold medal for hockey would have been great, but I was more into the women's. I was more invested in that.
Yep.
That was super disappointing. Curling was obviously like such a letdown. You know, we got a lot of medals, but they were with a lot of sports where I'm like, they're so new, so there's not a ton of history there, so there's not as much oomph with them. So
I think the highlight for me of the Olympics so far this year was the Canadian and German bobsled teams tying for gold as the German team came sideways across the fucking finish line.
That was pretty cool.
That was fun. But I feel disappointed this year, despite the performance of all the Canadian athletes doing so well. I'm very proud of all the athletes that performed valiantly. The one guy who stole a car while drunk and got arrested doing so can go fuck himself. But just the athletes who they all did well, but it still feels disappointing. It feels like the Canadian women's could have won that game, but they were poorly coached in the third period in overtime. There were some ladies who were playing in overtime who hadn't played in 40 minutes. They're rolling two lines of old players trying to get them going. As much as I love Natalie Spooner and the legends of that team, they shouldn't be rolling two lines in overtime in 4-on-4 against an American team who clearly has a ton of speed and a ton of young players. The Canadian men's team was, they ran into a brick wall. It was Germany, and I'm glad to say that Germany played that well, but they were poorly coached, and I was unfortunate that Ben Scrivens got injured.
Ben Scrivens would have made that a difference in that game, because like that game and the Czech Republic game, we were bleeding goals.
Poulin was bad.
Basically an NHL goalie, you know.
Yeah, it became very evident why these players are no longer in the NHL. Aside from Brian Giunta, who now signed a contract with the Bruins, I believe. But it was disappointing. And then the curling, I'm not going to get me started on the curling.
Oh,
Team Homan
was
absolute
like
shit.
So sad.
Team Homan was shit. The Canadian men's team curled like crap. When they played mixed, they were very good. They won a gold medal in mixed, but for men's and women's, they played like shit. And I think that's the first time.
Especially the women's. It's the first time ever that like they don't make it to the gold medal game. They don't medal. Neither team medals, and on top of that, the women's team doesn't even qualify for knockout round.
Yeah, it was just Team Homan is better than that. They're gonna be pissed themselves. I know one of the members of Team Homan. I know that she's pissed at herself. It's just not. They didn't play well.
And it's better than that too.
Cooey's so much better. And I remember the days of Furby, and Cooey is just as good, but they played like shit. I mean, at least I will say we won a gold in Big Air. It was great to see Sebastian Touton, who was
freestyle cross.
Yeah, we got gold and silver in freestyle cross women's. Not freestyle cross, snowboard cross. Sorry, but for Seb Touton is the veteran of the team, and he's 25, which makes me feel old as shit. But he won he won gold, which is good for him. And there were some events where it was definitely great. A lot of it went well, but I don't know about you guys, but I have this. I guess it was because I wanted, the big sports for me at least, the Olympics are curling and hockey, and they failed miserably both. So for me, it felt like a disappointment.
I just realized something, James. You look like an angsty teenager right now.
A little bit.
It's like, Mom, I'll clean up my room later. All right, continue.
Little hair sticking out there.
Yeah.
A little scruff.
Fancy shit. There we go. Now we got professional.
All
right. Sorry.
It's funny.
I will state though, Canada improved its gold medal total from last year. Kim Bhutan was a big highlight for the Canada in this Olympics, and she was the closing Olympic flag bearer. I forget the name of the guy, but we finally medaled in long track speed skating. For like the first time in forever in the 10K. And mind you, it was obviously a guy from Netherlands that got us that. And then like all of that just coming together is just, it was great beginning, great middle, and it's just the ending that left everyone with a salty tune.
Do you guys think the NHL looks at these Olympics and goes, we're going to send NHL players next time because that was
No.
bad.
No.
I think it's the opposite.
I think it's gonna be like they're happy that like it didn't work out because it just shows to them that the KHL is still like relatively shit. And honestly, the only positive that I see from this is now Team Canada and Team USA are gonna butt their heads in and go, "What the fuck is going on? We're butting in right now. We don't want to be embarrassed like that again."
I think you look at a lot of the games and there was a lot of empty seats. There were a lot of empty seats.
That was that was the entire like Olympics this year. It was just full of empty seats.
I think the IOC is going to push for the NHL to pay for more, but they're not going to. I think the NHL is going to have more bargaining power next time around.
Oh yeah.
Because the IOC looked at it and went, "Wow, this is not going well," and then you look back to the last two Olympics with the NHL players, and the hockey drew big crowds, especially in Russia. Obviously, the gold medal game was mostly Canadians and Swedes, but the viewership was also way down this year. And it wasn't like because Korea was at ridiculous time. There were some games that were at stupid times. There was 4:10 a.m. games, but most of the Canadian games were at reasonable times. The women's game was at 8:10 p.m. It wasn't like the time was like in Russia where you're getting up at 3 a.m. for the gold medal game. It was generally times you could watch the games at, and the viewership was still down.
Yeah.
So it's
and you add to all of this, and you go like, huh? And it wasn't as if that like viewership was down like everywhere because like they set a record for the highest viewership in at a hockey game this year with the women's U.S. Canada final. So there's definitely excitement to follow the games, but a lot of it is just falling on the fact that, like, A, it's the quality of the games, and B, it's, who's actually playing.
I think if you have a Canada USA final for the men's, that draws the biggest viewership of all time.
Yeah.
Because it would have been
it would be the third time in the past like 20 years that would happen.
Yeah, that game would have been 8:10 p.m. on a Saturday night in Canada and US, 8:10 p.m. in, I should say, West Coast, and that would have been fucking crazy.
That would have been massive viewership. Yeah.
Oh, it would have been better than the goddamn 9 a.m. start last year. I mean,
that's the thing, right? Like it wasn't 9 a.m. for me. Oh man, that was early. Oh fuck, that was early. It was before 9 a.m.
And BC was the only province to not allow like early drinking, wasn't it? Like the bars.
Ontario, it was the only province. So we watched. Ontario was we went out to the liquor store and got a bunch of beer, and because the game started like 3:30 in the morning, I think it was Ontario time. It was either 3:30 or 4 a.m. and it was there's a picture of
great game either in terms of like it being a balanced game. It was good if you were a Canadian fan. That was it.
That was why we made it through the first period and we passed out intermission. I think Canada was up 1-0 after the first period, and it was probably the most boring. Because it was more than one of the more boring hockey games I've ever seen because Canada just shut everything down. They basically got the first goal. Carey Price stood on his head. The defense went, "Yeah, we're not going to allow shots," and the forwards just played a game. It was the most boring game I've ever seen.
It was basically the Crosby and Price show for a lot of it.
It was the perfect hockey game.
Yeah.
Is basically what happened. They scored one.
Combined with the fact that
they scored a second one.
Got banned out from that game for being able to play on some like bitch ass reason.
Honestly, it was allergens.
Stupid reason.
He took too many allergy pills.
Yeah.
Mind you, with that said, he wouldn't have made that much of a difference. Nicholas Backstrom is a great player, but that Canadian team...
He would make the difference in the sense that you're missing your second line center.
Well, we did win the game 3-0. We won the semifinal game 1-0.
1-0. I was against the U.S. too, wasn't it?
That was against the U.S., and it was like the most lopsided 1-0 game I've ever seen.
Yeah. Actually, the only one that gets more lopsided than that is the us versus Latvia game.
Ugh.
That was like the frustration was starting to mount because we were like, we are so badly outplaying them and we can't goddamn score.
Yeah. Gudlevskis, that was still my favorite game in the Olympics. Gudlevskis was unreal.
He didn't even like solidify himself as like an NHL or even AHL guy after that. It's just a one good game from him. So good and so internationally watched, his name became popular.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened. That's like this. If you think about the was it another? I think it was another Latvian goalie in the World Juniors who just went absolutely. It was like overheating in the game, and he didn't get player of the game, and they ended up getting a chance for player of the game in Montreal. I think it was Montreal, Toronto. The game was in. I can't remember who it was. It was Anders Lindback, maybe.
I don't know.
No. Anyway, might have been Vasilevsky early on, but it was a lot of like they got a lot of chance, and it's Canada appreciates their hockey, which going back to the Olympics, I feel like there's a lot of anger surrounding this year's Olympics and how poorly they went for Canada. Not in the sense that Canada didn't play very well. They didn't, but it in the sense that those games could have been so much better if we sent our best players.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have approached an hour, and we've covered all of our topics so far. I don't think there's any more we can really talk about the Olympics. Shout out to Scott Virtue and Tessa Moyer, unless I'm missing up those names. They were great, along with the other ice dance.
No, yeah, the skaters.
Yeah, I wanted to cry by the end of their performance. That was so good.
I could not watch the performance. I was too nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was fair, considering the French team set a world record for the long skate.
Yeah, I was in the other room. I was listening, but I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, and the commentators chime in saying they have to beat their personal best score in order to be able to win the gold medal. And the score comes up and everyone goes wild.
It was the Olympic record. They had to beat the Olympic because the team before them beat the Olympic record score.
They
beat the Olympic record score to win.
I thought they beat the world record. Oh, okay, Olympics.
It might have been the world record, but I'm pretty sure it's the Olympic record for sure.
That was another. That was definitely a highlight for me. Another highlight to join that highlight was when is it Scott Moore? I keep mixing up the goddamn name.
Yeah, it's Scott Moore.
When he's in that
game.
fucking Canada versus USA game, and he's in the crowds, and he's drinking that beer and yelling at the refs and just going,
"Wake up,
buddy!"
the most Canadian thing I've ever seen.
The most Canadian thing. Drink in hand, gold medal winner.
Yelling at the refs at a hockey game. So good.
Oh
that was the moment I realized that he's Canadian for sure.
Canadian for sure. All right. So that's
last depressing. I was gonna say.
Oh no.
Last depressing note before we leave.
Mm-hmm.
So it has obviously been 25 games since Milan Lucic has scored. He has 4 assists in those 25 games, by the way.
Oh man.
4 more years.
5 more years. Who knew he would be back? Who knew he would be back by year 2? Everyone's like, oh, he's going to be great for the first 3 or 4 years, and we're just going to have to deal with the rest of it. No, bad. He's bad by year 2.
Oh, guess what? He's making as much as Taylor Hall.
I didn't want to know that. 26 points in 21 games.
Let's end this before you guys.
And Taylor Hall is encroaching upon he's into the top 5 in terms of regular season point streaks.
Actually, we're fun fact. Taylor Hall has almost as many point streaks as Milan Lucic has goalless streak. I think Taylor Hall's a 21 game point streak, and Milan Lucic has 25.
I didn't want to know that.
Chiarelli's getting fired this summer. I'm gonna just.
I don't think it's gonna get fired this summer. When it's Nicholson's higher and Nicholson's huge on Chiarelli, I don't see it happening.
We're fucked.
They're gonna see this season as a one-off, and then perhaps at the end of next season he's gonna get fired.
Oh god!
Nicholson plays favorites. Everyone, there's a reason that Hockey Canada was considered to be somewhat corrupt.
You know what you have to do? It's really hard for Canadians and Edmontonians in particular, but you just have to not buy these tickets. Don't go to these. I know, but don't go to the games.
I've already planned not. I was bidding going to the Canucks game against the Oilers on the 29th. I don't want to anymore.
You should go to that one just because the Canucks are getting your money, not the Oilers.
But
and the Canucks in all honesty, are doing a fairly good job with their rebuild so far. I'm actually impressed.
It's worth noting too that the Oilers hired Paul Coffey, they've hired Wayne Gretzky, Kevin Lowe's still around, David Tabish still around. The OVC is still going strong somehow.
Going strong. Even in a political move, what they should have done is move Kevin Lowe completely off anything called Oilers, and that would have looked like way better, like aesthetically. But even if you say that like he's not involved in like hockey decisions anymore, like no one's gonna believe that.
Craig McTavish still is though.
He still is, yeah. And honestly, like comparatively speaking, I think Craig McTavish would have done a slightly better job, at least with the contracts, than Chiarelli has. He would have been horrible with the trades because McTavish doesn't trade, and he would have been horrible with player management because that's where he's shit. But
McTavish is good at
contracts
contracts.
would have looked better.
Yeah, he's good at contracts.
He's good at contracts.
Anyway, let's end this because it's 11:40. Tiger Woods is playing golf, and it's basically golf season for the Oilers anyway. So I'm gonna watch Tiger Woods play.
Again, everyone, I apologize for the video problems. Fortunately, we were able to fix on the fly.
Why? You gotta see us instead of you. That's even better.
No, I'm talking about the time where like you can see anything. Anyway,
I know,
thank you very much for joining us on this week's podcast. We will be likely streaming again within the next 2 or 3 weeks. We've slowed down a bit because there hasn't been much to talk about in terms of topics. That's why we skipped over last week and just did it this week instead.
Too depressing. Too depressing.
No, dude, there's just no topics. I mean, it's not because we lost the last 7 of our 8 games. It's just because there's no topics to talk about. Then that's the only thing. Anyway, this has been a Runatic, otherwise known as a Rune in real life, or a Runatic5 on Reddit. With me was Paul-McCartney- who's completely done at the moment, otherwise known as James, and Adam, otherwise known as Shweet44722 on Reddit. Thank you very much for joining us for today's podcast, and hope you had a good one, and we will see you next time. Peace. Now you cover the camera.
I fucking hate this team.